Mangwanani Malelepo Vugenjani Klenkwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Today is Wednesday, the 4th of August, and as usual, you are joined by Ashwin Bedi and Aina Raiza Kweyo.
I'm extremely excited because today is Single Working Women's Day. Single is no longer a lack of option, but a choice. A choice to refuse to let your life be defined by your relationship status, but to live every day happily and let your ever after work itself out. It's so amazing that this day, Single Working Women's Day, is on a Wednesday, which is also
Woman Crush Wednesday. Hey, there you go.
It's fantastic. Here's more on Single Working Women's Day. I love that video so much, a dance of glory on a Wednesday. And here are the news making headlines. Dozens of bodies found in river between Ethiopia's Tigray and Sudan. At least 30 corpses have washed up on the Sudanese bank of a river that abuts Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray. Dr. Tewodoros Tafera, a surgeon who escaped from Ethiopia's border town of Humera, told Reuters he had buried 10 bodies over the past 6 days in Sudan and was told by local fishermen and refugees another 28 have been recovered, including 7 on Monday. They were shot in their chest, abdomen, and legs and also had their hands tied. He said he had been able, with the help of refugees, to identify 3 bodies belonging to Tigrayans from Humera. Many Tigrayans from Humera have fled Sudan, where the fighting began. On Monday, an Ethiopian government-run Twitter account said accounts of floating bodies circulating on social media were due to fake campaign by Tigrayan propagandists.
Staying with Ethiopia, growing concerns for unity as Tigray conflict spreads. There are increasing concerns about Ethiopian unity as the conflict in the northern Tigray region escalates. The 9-month-long war between Tigrayan rebel forces and the Ethiopian army and its allies has been mostly contained in Tigray itself, but the fighting is spreading into the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar. Ethiopia is the second most populous state in Africa, with a history of ethnic tensions. In 1994, a new constitution was introduced, which created a series of ethnically based regions meant to address the problem of an over-centralized state. After Abiy Ahmed, who comes from the largest ethnic group, the Oromo, became prime minister in 2018, he made a series of bold liberalizing moves to end state repression. But this liberalization was accompanied by a burst in ethnic nationalism, with different groups demanding more power and land.
In our next story, General Assembly creates new permanent forum of people of African descent. Camping years of deliberations, the UN General Assembly on Monday established a new platform to improve the lives of Afro-descendants who have for centuries suffered the ills of racism, racial discrimination, and the legacy of enslavement around the globe. The 193-member body unanimously adopted a resolution establishing the United Nations Permanent Forum of People of African Descent, a 10-member advisory body that will work closely with the Geneva-based Human Rights Council. The new forum will serve as a consultation mechanism for people of African descent and other stakeholders and contribute to the elaboration of the UN Declaration, a first step towards legally binding instruments on the promotion and full respect of rights of the African descent.
In our next story, at least 15 soldiers killed in Niger attack. 15 soldiers have been killed in what Niger's defense ministry has described as a terrorist attack in the southwest of the country near the border with Burkina Faso. It said soldiers in the Torodi area of the Tillaberi region were ambushed and then hit by an improvised explosive device. 7 soldiers were wounded and 6 are missing. Ground forces backed by military aircraft are searching the area. Jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are active in the border region shared by Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso.
In our next story, over 47 million COVID-19 vaccination administered across the continent. As of the 3rd of August, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reached over 6 million, while over 47 million vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reached over 171,000, while over 5 million people have recovered. South Africa has the most reported cases of over 2 million and over 72,000 people have died. The numbers are compiled by the Center of System Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University using statistics from the World Health Organization and other international institutions, as well as national and regional public health departments.
In our next story, Nigeria quits maritime regional body over electoral illegalities. Nigeria has hinted that it would quit the Maritime Organization for West and Central Africa over what it termed the disregard for the rules of procedure regarding the eligibility of candidates nominated for the position of Secretary General of the organization. This position followed the presentation for election for the position of Secretary General of over 8 candidates by Guinea and the Republic of Benin. Nigeria is the only country that met the age eligibility criteria requirement of candidates not exceeding 55 years of age. The candidate nominated by Nigeria was 55 years as at when the nominations closed in 2020, while the candidates of Guinea and Benin were 60 years and 62 years old, respectively. Nigeria also pointed out yesterday that no member state has supported the MOWCA as it has done with over $5 million in the past 10 years, even though the organization did not employ a single Nigerian.
Dozen killed in fuel truck accident in DR Congo. 33 people died in a horrific collision between a fuel truck and a crowded bus in the Democratic Republic of Congo during the weekend, said the police. The victims were engulfed by a huge fire sparked by collision overnight on Saturday in the west of the country. Local police Captain Anthony Pululu told the AFP news agency on Monday. The inferno occurred near the village of Kibuba along National Route 1, approximately 80 kilometers from the capital Kinshasa. Deadly road accidents are frequent in the DRC, where the roads are full of older vehicles that often do not comply with safety norms and roads are in poor state of repair.
In our next story, Mozambique state fuel firm denies links to sea spill. Mozambique's state-owned fuel distributor Petromoc has denied links to an oil spill that happened over the weekend at the port of Pemba off the coast of Cabo Delgado province. The company's board chairperson Helder Chambise said there was little information about the origin of the fuel found at sea. He said that if the company was responsible, the local authorities would have informed them. Mr. Chambise said investigations were ongoing to find out the origin and reason for the spillage. It was estimated that the spillage caused the loss of at least 10,000 liters of fuel.
Most looted shops still shut, and this is in South Africa. 2 weeks after several South African provinces were hit by a wave of deadly violence, the process of rebuilding their destroyed infrastructure and reopening the scores of looted shops has yet to begin. A deadly spree of violence and looting engulfed the South African provinces of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal a couple of weeks ago, during which thousands of businesses were gutted and at least 330 people were killed. killed. The KZN government on Thursday declared a state of disaster to divert the budget towards recovery. In Gauteng, the Deep Kloof shopping mall had all 34 of its shops looted and vandalized. Some were even set on fire. The marks of looting, vandalism, and arson still remain. With the exception of 2, all stores are still closed.
Next up, breastfeeding central to eliminating child malnutrition. Two senior UN officials are urging governments to make breastfeeding-friendly environments a priority, in line with commitments made earlier this year to accelerate global progress on malnutrition. Henrietta Form, Executive Director of the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, and Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization, issued the reminder in a joint statement for World Breastfeeding Week, which runs through to 7 August. Initiation of breastfeeding within the first hour of birth, followed by exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and continued breastfeeding for up to 2 years or beyond, offers a powerful line of defense against all forms of child malnutrition, including wasting and obesity. Breastfeeding also acts as babies' first vaccine, protecting them against many common childhood illnesses, they added.
In our next story, Malian mother of 9 babies misses home. Halima Cisse and her husband Abdelkander Abi have spoken to French broadcaster RFI in one of their first interviews since the birth of their 9 babies in May. Ms. Cisse revealed they have named one of their sons Mohammed in tribute to the King of Morocco, having given birth in Casablanca, where the babies continue to receive care in incubators. She was quoted saying, "I miss my home country, my eldest daughter, my family, and my friends. But only time will tell when I'll be able to return, depending on how my children are evolving." Her doctor, Khalid Sif, paid tribute to her courageous and calm, telling RFI that the babies are very strong, having survived complications from extreme prematurity. They are now said to be able to be feeding on their own and no longer need medication.
All right, and the last of our top stories, rhino killings on the rise after lockdown curbs ease. The Kruger National Park in South Africa is where most of the country's rhino are being slaughtered. Authorities are battling to protect the species from poaching gangs. As South Africa marked World Ranger Day on Saturday, the country's environmental authorities announced a setback in efforts to conserve the country's rhinos. From January to the end of June 2021, 249 rhino have been poached for their horn in South Africa, said Barbara Creasy, the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, in a statement. This figure is higher than the amount poached during the same period in 2020. The country had been under a hard lockdown because of COVID-19 during much of that period. As lockdown restrictions have eased, authorities have seen an uptick in poaching activity. All right, that was the first batch of our news stories. Yes, we will still be talking about COVID-19. We can't afford not to. You know what it is. Right now, we're going to be looking at the trends over the last 6 weeks with Republican editor Mr. Danny Boyson, as we get you well within the news here on Africa Good Morning. See you after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, halfway through June, Danny Boysen, the editor of Afrikaans daily newspaper, The Republican, discussed trends in COVID-19 on Africa Good Morning. Welcome back, Danny. You are here to share with us how this picture has changed over the last 6 weeks. Are we seeing any positive signs yet?
Good morning. It's nice to be here. And in many African countries, also in Southern Africa, we've seen a relaxation of restrictions, like in Namibia and South Africa, for example. So first up, let's just take a quick look at Namibia itself. You will know that a while back, Namibia was one of the worst affected countries on the globe, on the entire planet. So top left, you'll see we are now recording 358 cases average per day. And you'll see that's much lower than the 1,800 cases per day at the peak of the third wave. There's a little blue index line, which shows that we are now below the levels of the second wave in January and December. Then a test per day, we did a lot of more testing, almost 6,000 at the peak. Our positivity ratio was an average 44%. It's now less than 20%, so it's almost halved. And then the fatalities, here at the peak, we had more than 60 deaths. That was actually recorded on a single day. That's basically twice Namibia's normal fatality rate. So that's Namibia's picture, and then we switch quickly to a comparison up next with some other countries in Southern Africa. And we also put in Tunisia here as an important marker for Northern Africa. They're one of the countries that actually did very well in the fight against COVID-19. And what I want to zoom in there on is Botswana. Botswana, our neighbor to the west, is actually only now starting to see their third wave starting to peak. So you'll see there 115,000 cases, but 796 on average per million people at the moment being reported daily. The fatalities you will also see there in total. You mentioned earlier in the show the 72,000 deaths in South Africa. If you take that per million of people, you see Namibia and South Africa is actually on the same level, 1,200 more or less per million people, and Tunisia at 1.7K, 1,700.
All right. Now, globally, the drive is to vaccinate as many people as possible. How is Southern Africa catching up to this?
I think Africa in general, we have a problem with access to vaccines, also delays in deliveries. Most of the countries, we spoke about Botswana yesterday. President Mokgweetsi Masisi asked President Biden of the USA to assist them with vaccines. So if we look at the next slide, this is about vaccinations. You'll see there right on top, Tunisia is doing much better than the 9 other African countries we selected to compare them with. So this is first vaccinations. So more than 14% of Tunisia's population has received a first vaccination already. And then you'll see around there the 10% mark, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Botswana. And Namibia much lower, about 6.5% of our population has received a first dose. And then way down 2% or less, you'll see Zambia, Nigeria, and Mozambique. So definitely in terms of vaccinations, Africa has still got a long way to go. And I think they call it, vaccine apartheid, the problems with delivery for the entire African continent. So it's important that that is sorted out. And I have 2 more slides just to finish off with, just showing you some general trends. It also shows how the wave, the third waves, is decreasing. You will see there, that's new cases per million of people. Botswana right on top there. And other countries like Namibia and South Africa, our lines have started to drop significantly. Namibia less than South Africa at the moment. And then last one is, unfortunately, we have to look at that deaths. And you'll see there it's a green line, which represents Namibia's data. So you see there went lower now, below Tunisia, and then followed by Botswana in terms of deaths per million people being reported at the moment. So things are looking up, I think, but there's a long way to go. And I think important for all our economies in the sub-region is also that we must work together to beat the pandemic. Otherwise, we will have new lockdowns, new restrictions, which will only make it harder to start growing again.
Definitely, I must agree with you that we can all beat COVID-19 together, and the more we put all our efforts together, the better our chance is to restoring our humanity. Thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning this morning.
It's my pleasure.
All right, we will be right back after the break. This has been Danny Boyson, editor of The Republican, who was discussing trends in COVID-19.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to take a trip to Zambia and find out the news on the ground from Mr. Mike Sichula. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Africa, good morning. I'm doing fine. How are you doing too?
I'm fantastic. Now, schools will resume tomorrow while higher learning institutions will remain closed until further notice. Could you tell us about this?
Yes, earlier last month, I did announce to our viewers on Africa Good Morning that the government of Zambia has decided that schools should open on the 16th of August, which will be like 4 days after the general elections. However, this decision has been revised, and schools for those that are in examination classes, that is grade 7, grade 9, 10 and 11 will open, 12 will open tomorrow, the 5th of August. Then the terms are going to run from term 2 is going to run up to the 28th of September. Then term 3 will start on 28th of September to December the 10th, 2021. So this is the decision that government has taken to say that schools should open now, and to allow learners who have been on prolonged holiday due to the pandemic have time to get to be ready for the examinations. So this decision has not been received very well by a cross-section of society who are saying parents are going to have difficulties to raise finances to pay for their children. But government has said schools should not force parents to pay for school fees, considering that there has been these changes in terms of opening and closing. So this is what will be happening starting tomorrow. Most of the learners are going back to school. Then in terms of addressing the concerns of the coronavirus, the government has taken up a lot of responsibilities, such as fumigating classrooms, as well as ensuring that aspects of hand washings and having face masks are taken care of, so that learners are at least protected or prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
Right now, the opposition party has been suspended from doing campaigns in one of the constituencies. Why is that?
Yes, on Monday this week, I did announce to our viewers here to say there was some political violence that happened on Friday last week, where two people belonging to the ruling Patriotic Front were killed. Actually, these two people were even buried yesterday. So it is this occurrence of death that has prompted the electoral body to ban the UPND. There in the picture, that is Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, one in front of that in that vehicle, drawing up some campaigns in some parts of the country. So the decision has been made that the party should not conduct campaigns in Kaunyama constituency, which is a highly densely populated compound within Lusaka. So there hasn't been a comment from the opposition because probably maybe with about 8 days to go before elections, they're thinking probably they could have done enough to canvass for votes in that constituency. But reports of electoral violence have continued to happen across the country where these two political parties more or less like meet, the PF, the ruling party, and the opposition UPND.
All right. Now, in the last of your stories, a Zambian has been appointed by the World Bank to be the country manager for Zimbabwe. Could you please tell us how this came about?
Yes, Marjorie Mpondo has been a senior counsel at the World Bank Group since 2005. So her appointment to be the country manager for Zimbabwe probably is due to her works at the World Bank Group. Then she's a lawyer by training, and she takes up this. She has probably taken up this position from the 1st of August 2021. She's gone to the World Bank in Zimbabwe to replace a Kenyan national who was the country manager for the World Bank in Zimbabwe. So this achievement has excited a lot of Zambians who are saying more women from Zambia are taking up big positions, not only in the government, but at least even in the region. And Zimbabwe and Zambia, like the former president, Mr. Michael Sata used to say, they are more or less like Siamese twins. So her appointment to take over this job is something that has excited a lot of Zambians, and I believe some people in Zimbabwe are also excited because of women taking up big positions in governance as well as in regional integration.
Absolutely, keeping it within the family, so to speak. Thank you very much, Mr. Sichula, for bringing us the news from Zambia.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed week. Thank you.
A blessed week we certainly hope to have, but prior to that, we'd love to have a blessed day, especially with regards to the weather. But that's something we can't quite predict without the weather forecast, of course. Up next.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Now, South Africa is known for many things, and one of those is that it produces one of the best talents in the world. And one of those is Ari Gorad, who is our correspondent. Good morning, Ari. How are you doing?
Yes, very good morning, Aina. I thought you were going to talk about Olympic athletes. I wasn't ready for that one.
All of you are talent. Now, in your first story, Eskom, South Africa's electricity public utility, seems to have made a premature announcement related to the Medupi power station, and indications are that the Medupi project is not yet complete, as Eskom announced earlier this week. Please tell us more.
Yes, South Africa has been waiting patiently for the completion. It started in 2007, so obviously it's well documented that South Africa do have massive challenges with electricity supply, with load shedding, etc., quite relevant in South Africa. But the news is that Eskom did make an announcement that it was commercially operational, so to say that the project is done. But they were reminded that there's quite a few legal requirements that still needs to be met. It's got to do with environmental activities, and so it is the minimum emission standards that needs to be put in place. So extensive repair work still needs to be done. That might take 2 years, and installation of technologies to reduce that's the sulfur dioxide emissions. That's that needs to be addressed. So it's all got to do with air pollution. So it's close to completion, but it's not really commercially operational yet. There's legal requirements that needs to be met. So South Africa waiting patiently for that to be done. The cost initially in 2007 was set out to be 80 billion South African rand to do Medupi, but it's now way over 200 billion at the moment. 223, I think, was the latest number. So it is quite expensive for the taxpayers and for the country, but hopefully when it's done, it's a coal-fired power station. So there is an air pollution challenge, but hopefully it will help massively in the supply of enough electricity in southern Africa, I suppose.
All right. Now, the Western Cape is currently the province with the highest daily percentage of COVID-19 infections. As the Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Wind, asks for stricter measures in the province. Could you please tell us about this?
Yes, Ashwin, it's I think the spike, so to say, the Western Cape is reaching its spike. I think that might be the word. Together with Gauteng, the Western Cape do have the highest daily cases, positive cases in the country. It's about 2,233 cases in Cape Town yesterday that was tested positive. In Gauteng, it's also 2,200. But Premier Alan Winde just indicated that there's a shortage of vaccines, firstly, in Cape Town or in the Western Cape. That is a challenge. And there's also the demand exceeds the supply, also in terms of hospitalization. So it is at the moment a challenge. There's been 7.9 million people vaccinated across South Africa. But the good news is that on Sunday, there was 2.5 million Pfizer vaccines that arrived in the country. And also yesterday, there was a big amount of 5.6 million Pfizer vaccines that arrived. So there's at least vaccines that arrived in Cape Town or arrived in South Africa, and that would be obviously distributed to the Western Cape. Schools opened again, and the schools also are allowed to do sports and cultural activities. So everybody's trying to slowly get into the life as normal as possible, but still big awareness in the Western Cape related to the threat of COVID-19.
All right, now, in our third story, the embattled airline Mango is still caught up in legal procedures as the application to go voluntary business rescue is to be heard in court on Friday. Please share more.
It's not a good time for airlines at the moment worldwide, globally. South Africa, it was a challenge for SAA and Mango even before COVID-19. So even more so now, Mango is applying for voluntary business rescue. It's a subsidiary from SAA, South African Airways, and they have 700 people working at Mango. So that was meant to be in court yesterday. That was to be heard in the South Gauteng High Court yesterday. But one of the lessors of Mango requested that Mango be liquidated last year, and they also asked for the postponement of yesterday's court readings to Friday. So that will be in court, and there's going to be arguments. The arguments of the lesser is that they're challenging if Mango is still legally meant to be allowed to operate. But at the moment, Mango is waiting for a payment from South African Airways. South African Airways got 10 billion rand in a business rescue. Of that, 2.7 billion is for subsidiaries. And of that, there's more than one subsidiary, but one of the subsidiaries is Mango, and they meant to get 819 million rand. They haven't got it yet, so hopefully they can get that, and that will obviously be to pay their people.
All right, Ari, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to ask you your last, I'm going to lead you into your last two stories, and hopefully you can just, create some kind of bridge between them. The first one is the Defense Standing Committee has expressed serious concerns about South Africa's intelligence capabilities after investigating the unrest of 20 and 21 July. Then you might need to take a sharp left when you talk about our feel-good story of South Africa's only gold medal winner to date at the Tokyo Olympics. Tatiana Schoonmaker is back at home, and she explained on her arrival that for her, it hasn't sunk in yet. As briefly as you can, Ari.
Yes, I think the Intelligence Standing Committee was just expressing concerns that South Africa need to patch up on that. There was not good intelligence for the unrest of 20 and 21 July. And then Tatiana Schoonmaker is a new hero for South Africa. The last gold medal in swimming was in 1996, Penny Haynes. So she's back home again, big smile. Nice, massive, big gold medal. It's great for South Africa. Everybody's happy. And she said it hasn't sunk in yet. A very humble person, very strong in her faith. And she's described as shy and reserved, but very motivated. And South Africa very proud of her. Good to have a gold medal in South Africa.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the news from South Africa.
It's a pleasure. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Is it just me or are African women holding the spirit of Africa from Tatiana to Christine and Beatrice? We love the work you're doing. This is still Africa Good Morning. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories for the day. In our first story, IMF nations approve record $650 billion to aid virus fight. Member nations approved the biggest resource injection in the International Monetary Fund's history, with $650 billion meant to help countries deal with mounting debt and the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The creation of the reserve assets, known as special drawing rights, is the first since the $250 billion issued just after the global financial crisis in 2009, with Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva billing it as a shot in the arm for the world that will help boost global economic stability. The SDR allocation will benefit all members, address the long-term global need for reserves, build confidence, and foster the resilience and stability of the global economy, Georgieva said. It will particularly help our most vulnerable countries struggling to cope with the impact of the COVID-19 crisis.
In our next story, warning over rising petrol prices as South Africa gets ready to pay over 18 rand a litre this week. Significant fuel prices increase in August will have a knock-on effect on prices across a number of major sectors, says the Mobile Automobile Association, adding even more pressure to consumers who are already struggling to make ends meet. The Department of Minerals Resources and Energy announced a 91 cent per liter increase for petrol and a 55 to 56 cent per liter increase for diesel over the weekend. These changes will come in effect on Wednesday, the 4th of August. The AA Lightenbeard said that the first time in history, motorists will pay more than 18 rand for a liter of petrol in inland station. That is certainly a huge cause for concern, not just for motorists, but all consumers. Everything is going to get more expensive, he said.
All right, in our next story, 4 Chinese nationals appear in court after 24 million rand worth of abalone seized in 3 days. 5 suspected poachers have appeared in the Gqeberha Magistrates Court after they were allegedly found in possession of abalone, which led to the subsequent discovery of a huge storage and processing facility. Hawks spokesperson Captain Yolisa Mgolodela said the first suspect was arrested last Wednesday in the Kinkobos area after law enforcement agencies recovered a vehicle containing abalone. Further investigation led police to a number of addresses in the Wama policing area in Gqeberha where 2 bags of abalone were seized. The officers also discovered a huge abalone storage and processing facility. Dark Water Ops assisted the Hawks, SAPS K9 unit and the Department of Environmental, Forestry and Fisheries with the sting operation after the arrest in Kinkobos. At the end of the 72-hour shift, just short of 24 million rand worth of abalone was confiscated, Dark Water Ops said in a social media post.
In our next story, 58 million from Acumen for climate resilience for smallholder farmers. Acumen is closing a 58 million fund to finance climate change adaptation for smallholder farmers. Funded by several international financial institutions, the Acumen Agricultural Resilience Fund will work in several countries affected by climate change, most of which are in Africa. Acumen's initiative is also supported by the Green Climate Fund. The impressive closing of 58 million from AFAR, 8 million more than our initial target, and the fund is a watershed moment, and with only 5% of climate investment directed towards adoption signals the beginning of the shift in climate finance. By investing in agriculture startups in East and West Africa, AFAR can reduce poverty, build climate resilience, and demonstrate the impact of investing in resilient agriculture, says Tamar Rakbi, AFAR's managing director.
Well, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories for the day. Next up, economic indicators. Welcome to our Wednesday Olympic slot. In our first story, Team Nigeria's long wait for a medal at the ongoing Tokyo Olympics finally ended on Tuesday, with Ese Broom winning the bronze in the women's long jump event. Broom, with her best leap of 6.97 meters, settled for the bronze behind world champion Malaika Mihambo, who snatched the gold with her very last jump of 7 meters. United States' Brittany Rees, who also had a best jump of 6.97 meters, picked the silver medal ahead of Broom with the countback rule. This is Nigeria's first medal in athletics at the Olympic Games in 13 years. Tuesday's final started on a bright note for Broom as she took the lead with her very first jump, which was a distance of 6.97 meters. Next up, we're talking about the women's 200-meter final. Jamaica's Elaine Thompson-Herah made Olympic history in Tokyo on Tuesday, blazing to victory in the 200 meters to complete an unprecedented women's sprinting double-double. Thompson-Herah, the 2016 Olympics 100-meter and 200-meter gold medalist, who successfully defended her 100-meter title on Saturday, bagged a record fourth individual gold after storming home in a blistering 21.53 seconds. Namibia's teenager Christine Mboma took silver in 21.81 seconds, while USA's Gabby Thomas took bronze in 21.87 seconds. As well as becoming the first woman to claim a 100-meter, 200-meter double-double, Thompson-Herah is the only female track and field athlete to win 4 individual Olympic golds. It looked as if Thomas and Jamaica's Shelly Ann Fraser-Price would take the silver and bronze, but that duo were passed by a scorching finish over the final 20 meters from 18-year-old Namibian teenager Christine Mboma, who plundered silver. The other 18-year-old Namibian teenager Beatrice Masilingi came in 6th place. Next up, we are talking football. At the Olympics, Spain will play reigning champions Brazil in the Olympic men's football final on Saturday after Marco Asensio's superb extra-time winner secured a 1-0 victory over host nation Japan. The Real Madrid winger came off the bench as a substitute and curled in a terrific strike in the 115th minute, sending Spain through to a first Olympic final since they finished runners-up at the 2000 Games in Sydney. Earlier, Brazil's goalkeeper Santos saved Mexico's Eduardo Aguirre's penalty in a shootout before Johan Vasquez smacked the post with Mexico's second attempt. Mexico lost 4-1 on penalties to Brazil in Kashima following 120 goalless minutes. Japan will take on Mexico in Friday's bronze medal match. Warholm smashes 400-meter hurdles world record. Some were calling this the greatest track and field race in history afterwards, and watching this 45.94-second symphony of destruction up close, it was impossible to disagree. As Karsten Warholm crossed the line, he looked at the clock and screamed. He had obliterated his old 400-meter hurdles world record of 46.70 by a staggering 0.76. No wonder he tore his track vest open like Superman afterwards. welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to find out what's happening in the rest of the world of sport from Mr. Ari Hohad in Cape Town. Good morning, Ari. Once again, take it away.
Yes, morning, Ashwin. Yes, I'm going to talk about some tennis and cricket and also some rugby. Firstly, some tennis news. It is the City Open that's taking place, part of the ATP Tour, at the moment happening in Washington. That is the court they're playing on. And news from Washington is that South African Kevin Anderson lost in the first round. And he was a finalist in the US Open and the Wimbledon quite recently, Kevin Anderson. And that's Kevin Anderson, but he lost to American Jensen Brooksley, and the score was 7-6 and 6-3. And other players that's still in the draw is Kei Nishikori of Japan. He beat Sam Querrey of the USA by 6-4, 6-3. And then the other big name is Rafael Nadal. He didn't play in the Olympics, but he's back on hard courts again, getting his game up for the US Open on hard courts. And he's going to play Jack Sock of the USA in the next round. And Nick Kyrgios of Australia and Grigor Dimitrov of Bulgaria, some of the other big names still in the tournament. And on to some cricket news. There's some T20 games happening across the globe, and big news for Bangladesh. Bangladesh yesterday played their first T20 game against Australia and achieved their first win ever against Australia in a T20 game. So it's always nice to see the so-called smaller nations beating the bigger nations. And it was Bangladesh that batted first, a low score, 131 for 7 in their 20 overs. And then the first ball of Australia's innings, they lost a wicket. They were 11 runs for the loss of 3, later on 71 for 4, and then bowled out for 108. So Bangladesh with a significant historical victory of 23 runs. They're going to play 5 T20 games, so the next game is going to be today. Also starting in England for the connoisseurs of Test cricket for the 5-day lovers is a big series. It is England hosting India, and that's going to be the first test is going to be today, starting today at Trent Bridge. It's England playing India in the first test. They're going to play 5-day tests. Lots of cricket to come in England for England and India. And also some rugby news. It's still a big rugby news in Southern Africa. South Africa happens every 12 years. It's going to have a final, so to say, the third and final test on Saturday. That is Alan Wynne-Jones, the inspirational captain of the British and Irish Lions. He's playing his 159th test game, the highest number of any player ever. And he's going to square up against the Springboks. Just quickly, news from the camp. The Lions made 6 changes to their starting lineup. Also, South Africa had to make 2 injury-enforced changes. That is Jaco Reinach and his Kobus Reinach, sorry, his dad was Jaco. He's Kobus Reinach. Kobus Reinach's going to start in place of Faf de Klerk, injured, and Pieter Steph de Toey also out, unfortunately, due to injury. Dwayne Vermeulen not fit enough to start in the 23. So the kickoff is 6 p.m. on Saturday in Cape Town at the Cape Town Stadium. And the referee for this game will be Frenchman Mathieu Reynal of France. So hopefully that won't be a name that we hear a lot on Monday. Hopefully it will be the team that win that will be in the headlines. So that's the sporting news from around the globe. And we talk again tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the sports news. Africa Good Morning has been coming to you from 7 a.m. Your headlines from our top stories will be back after the break.
Tell me, baby, do you like the way I move? Come on, get your dance on. We can have as much fun as you can possibly get. Get your dance on. Come on, come on, baby. Let's get this game on. Let me see it. Let's get this game on. Oh, yeah. Get it started.
This is still Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to have a look at your headlines. Dozens of bodies found in river between Ethiopia's Tigray and Sudan. Ethiopia, growing concerns for unity as Tigray conflict spreads. General Assembly creates new permanent forum of people of African descent. At least 15 soldiers killed in Niger attack. IMF nations approve record $650 billion to aid virus fight. Team Nigeria's long wait for a medal at the ongoing Tokyo Olympics finally ended on Tuesday with Ese Brume winning the bronze in the women's long jump event. In tennis on the ATP Men's Tour, the City Open is currently being played in Washington and South African Kevin Anderson lost in the first round. Those have been our stories. Don't forget to check out our live channel, oneup2.com, so you can get more great content through the day.
We look forward to hearing from you. You can email us your remarks regarding our show. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. Do not forget to sanitize, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and remember to play your part. We can all beat COVID-19 together.
Until tomorrow, Suraj Lakanaka.